Coming up on Arirang News, President Yoon has wrapped up his visit to the Indo-Pacific Command in Hawaii, a key U.S. defense command, marking the first visit by a South Korean commander-in-chief in 29 years. Now he is in Washington, D.C. to attend the NATO summit. Heavy rain pounded central and southern regions on Tuesday night and Wednesday morning, leaving at least 5 dead. Weather authorities say some regions, including Kunsan City, witnessed the most intense downpour in 200 years. South Korea added fewer than 100,000 jobs for the second consecutive month, amid several factors including the heat wave. Welcome to the 9 p.m. edition of Arirang News. I'm Kim Bo-kyung. We start in Hawaii, where President Yoon visited the U.S. INDOPACOM, during which he sent key messages taking into account current security developments on and surrounding the Korean Peninsula. Our correspondent Kim Do-yeon, who is part of the traveling press corps, files this report.
I put absolute trust in you. So says President Yoon to U.S. soldiers of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command, the U.S. Geographic Combatant Command responsible for the Korean Peninsula. This came as he visited the command on Tuesday and called it the pillar of the ROK-US alliance in an encouraging speech to its soldiers.
엄중한 국제 정세와 한반도 안보 상황 속에 철통 같은 한미 동맹과 우리의 연합 방위 태세를 확고히 다지기 위한 것입니다.
He also called out North Korea as being reckless, saying that its recent military pact and illegal arms deal with Russia has raised more concerns in the international community. He also emphasized INDOPACOM's role in combating such issues, as it's the largest of 6 U.S. combined combatant commands, covering 52% of the Earth's surface, with the saying, from polar bears to penguins.
공고한 공약과 협력의 토대를 둔 강력한 능력이야말로 규범에 기반한 영내 질서를 굳건하게 수호하는 원동력입니다. 그리고 그 근간에 바로 인태사령부가 있습니다.
It's the first time for a South Korean president to visit the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command here in Honolulu since it changed its name from U.S. Pacific Command back in 2018. And if you count the U.S. Pacific Command as well, it's the first time in 29 years. In the meantime, before his speech to the soldiers, President Yoon had the chance to meet with Commander Samuel Paparo. After a short greeting, Paparo briefed President Yoon on ongoing regional issues. According to the top office, after listening, Yoon responded with appreciation. In fact, President Yoon also awarded Commander Paparo with the Order of National Security Merit. While the commander only took on his current role last May, he led the United States Pacific Fleet for 3 years before this. This wrapped up Yoon's visit to Hawaii. Up next is the NATO summit in Washington, D.C., where once again, he's set to emphasize growing concerns over the strengthened cooperation between Russia and North Korea in front of NATO member countries and the Indo-Pacific 4 partners, Japan, Australia, and New Zealand. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News, Honolulu.
And with the president now in Washington, D.C. for the NATO summit, the focus is on South Korea's role in not just regional security, but also global security beyond the peninsula. Our senior correspondent Oh Soo-young takes a closer look.
Crossing over from Hawaii to DC, South Korea is connecting security interests across the Indo-Pacific region and transatlantic countries as a practical contributor to global security. That's according to an expert speaking to Arirang News as President Yoon heads to discussions with NATO countries in Washington, D.C. after wrapping up his visit to the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command. President Yoon's stopover in Hawaii demonstrates his host's firm alliance with Washington and a pivotal moment in its commitment to freedom, peace and stability in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. Seoul's assertive posture matters as European states look to work more closely with Indo-Pacific countries, given their overlapping interests in countering coercive forces in international waters and the growing collaboration between Russia and North Korea. Seoul's presidential office says NATO and its 4 Indo-Pacific partners, including South Korea, Japan, Australia and New Zealand, will issue various statements criticizing the Moscow-Pyongyang axis.
The significance of South Korea's participation in NATO summit is that it is a reflection of how security issues in European theater and Indo-Pacific region are closely interlinked. Russia could continue sustain its war efforts in Ukraine because China is supporting Russia's economy. China is basically funding Russia's war efforts. So Europeans, they want to dissuade China from doing that. But now North Korea is providing ammunition to support Russia. So there is a closer link between security issues in the 2 theaters, and South Korea is in a critical position to manage the security efforts linking between the like-minded countries.
Since last year's NATO summit in Vilnius, South Korea and the 32-member bloc have been focusing on institutionalizing cooperation on battlefield information, military intelligence sharing, and cybersecurity. Based on solidarity with like-minded countries, President Yoon's office said South Korea would seek to expand its realm of security cooperation to economic and technological partnerships.
South Korea's military industry has been advancing at the global level, so there is a opportunity that South Korea can provide support other countries' weapon system, their defense equipment capacity. So that's one thing, defense industry leading, supporting other countries' defense capacity.
While in DC, Yoon will hold a marathon of bilateral summits with at least 10 countries, including Finland, Sweden, Norway, Germany and the UK, with conversations expected to cover defense industry cooperation, infrastructure, supply chains, nuclear energy and other significant security interests. Yunnan Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida are also expected to meet in their second summit of this year, deepening their growing partnership against regional security threats as part of their trilateral cooperation with the United States. Oseong, Arirang News, Honolulu.
South Korea's cooperation with NATO goes back nearly 2 decades, starting when they first initiated a dialogue in 2005 on ways to uphold the rules-based international order. Our Lee Si-hoo highlights the history of the partnership bolstered through the years.
South Korea's cooperation with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization dates back to 2005 when their first dialogue began. A year later, in 2006, South Korea became a non-member partner state of the alliance. The partnership has strengthened over the years, and South Korea today is one of the major NATO partners in the Indo-Pacific. But how exactly did Seoul, located halfway across the globe from Europe and the Atlantic, come to establish a comprehensive partnership with its allies in responding to emerging issues? In 2012, Seoul signed the Individual Partnership and Cooperation Program, which laid out the first key areas of cooperation, including cyber defense and anti-terrorism. But the major milestones came in more recent years amid growing global geopolitical tensions. In June of 2022, President Yoon, shortly after his inauguration, attended the NATO summit in Spain. This marked the first attendance by a South Korean president. In November of the same year, Seoul established a diplomatic mission to NATO at its Brussels headquarters. This mission aims to facilitate enhanced dialogue and information sharing. By 2023, the key areas of cooperation agreed upon in 2012 were developed into more concrete objectives, with a detailed schedule for practical implementation. They named it the Individually Tailored Partnership Program.
ITPP 개별 맞춤형 이런 프로그램들을 만들어서 협력의 틀을 제도화하고 그리고 나토와 군사 정보와 사이버 분야의 협력에 관한 논의를.
Today, Seoul and NATO prioritize cooperation in cyber defense, new technologies, and arms control, including the non-proliferation of weapons of mass destruction, as well as other shared cross-regional issues, not just limited to defense. It's expected that Yoon's third summit attendance this year will facilitate the joint efforts of South Korea, a global pivotal state, and its like-minded allies in promoting the common values of freedom, peace, and prosperity. Lee Si-hu, Arirang News.
South Korea and Japan held a consultative meeting on defense policy in Tokyo on Wednesday, marking the resumption of such talks after 9 years. Lee Seung-bum, South Korea's Director General for International Policy at the Ministry of National Defense, met with his counterpart Atsushi Ando at Japan's Defense Ministry. South Korea's government said the two representatives discussed future cooperation, including regional security and enhancing defense cooperation. It's the first such meeting since 2015 and was decided by the two countries' defense ministers at last month's Shangri-La dialogue in Singapore, amid efforts to deter threats from North Korea. South Korea's Navy is currently partaking in the multinational Rim of the Pacific exercise over in Hawaii. In time for that, the Navy has successfully conducted a live-fire test of SM-2 shipborne missile interceptors, part of its primary weapons. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung was on site.
총원 전투배치! 전투배치! 전투배치!
함장님, 현 시각 적 지대함 유도탄 집초가 있습니다. SM-2 이용 교전 실시하겠습니다.
에센드 파이어! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
South Korea's SM-2 ship-to-air missile successfully hit its target in the live-fire exercise held in Hawaii. The drill was conducted by the Navy on Tuesday local time at the Pacific Missile Range facility on the sidelines of the Rim of the Pacific International Maritime Exercise. The missile was launched from this Yulgogi warship behind me to hit a virtual target approaching at high speed. The ship detected and tracked an unmanned hypothetical enemy aircraft with an Aegis radar and fired an SM-2 missile, accurately hitting the target. As demonstrated, the SM-2 is designed to intercept enemy missiles and aircraft from the sea. It has an attack range of around 150 kilometers. The live-fire demonstration comes amid evolving threats from North Korea.
Through this exercise, our Navy verified its ability to engage in anti-aircraft guided missile combat and improved its guided missile operation capability. If the enemy provokes us, we will punish them immediately, strongly, and to the end.
South Korea successfully conducted the first domestic live-fire test of SM-2 missile interceptors last December. Meanwhile, the country's Ibomseok submarine will also conduct a live-fire drill next week using the anti-ship Harpoon missile to target a decommissioned U.S. Navy warship. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News, Hawaii.
In the Middle East, negotiations to secure a ceasefire in the Gaza war will likely resume in Doha on Wednesday, with the intelligence chiefs of Egypt, the United States, and Israel in attendance. Egypt's Al Qaeda News says the Egyptian security delegation led by intelligence chief Abbas Kamel will carry out its mission to bring viewpoints closer between Hamas and Israel. It is also known that the negotiations will be back in Cairo on Thursday. Israel's spy chief David Barnea and U.S. CIA Director William Burns are also expected to be present at the meeting. Overnight, the central and southern regions of the country experienced sudden torrential rain. At least 5 deaths have been reported and 1 person is still missing. Yoon with the latest.
Heavy rainfall overnight in the central and southern regions of South Korea has led to 5 deaths and 1 person missing. In the early hours of Wednesday morning, Chungcheongnam-do province recorded rainfall of over 110 millimeters per hour. In the central province, 1 person was found dead in a building's elevator, which had flooded up to the first basement level, while landslides caused the deaths of 2 others. 2 more people were reported to have lost their lives in the southern parts of the country, with 1 person reported missing. Kunsan City in Jeollabuk-do Province saw the highest amount of rainfall recorded as it poured down at a rate of more than 130 millimeters per hour. Ochongdo Island, located about 2 hours by ferry from the city, saw a torrential downpour of 146 millimeters within just 1 hour. Residents remarked that they haven't witnessed such heavy rainfall in 70 years. With the exception of Jeju Island, the Korea Meteorological Administration has lifted all heavy rain crisis alerts nationwide as of late this morning, as most areas have been seeing lighter rain. But as the monsoon season continues, the government has stated its commitment to closely monitoring weather conditions and minimizing human casualties. The government also raised the alert level of the Central Disaster and Safety Countermeasures Headquarters to Level 2 from early Wednesday morning. Lee Eun-hee, Arirang News.
Korea's labor market maintained its growth in June, albeit at a tangibly slower pace amid a number of factors, including the sweltering heat. Our Moon Hye-ryun has more.
South Korea's job market continued its slowdown in June, with the construction sector seeing a decline in employment numbers. According to data released by Statistics Korea on Tuesday, there were 28.9 million people in employment last month, up 96,000 compared to the same month last year. But it's the second month in a row that job growth has hovered below the 100,000 mark, dropping in May after posting an increase of more than 260,000 in April. Despite a slowdown, though, the number of those in employment has posted record highs for 29 months straight.
By industry, the healthcare, telecommunications, and warehousing industries led the job growth. And by job type, temporary and full-time jobs showed an increase. By age, the number of those employed in their 30s and older than 60s rose.
With the country's aging population, the number of people in employment aged over 60 has continued to increase, showing an upswing of just under 260,000. However, the number of employed people aged between 15 and 29 years old fell by nearly 150,000 year-on-year in June. Employment in the construction industry fell by 66,000, showing a decline for 2 months straight, while employment in the retail industry has dipped for 4 consecutive months as it becomes increasingly automated. During an economic meeting on the same day, Finance Minister Choi Sang-mok commented that there have been several factors contributing to the deceleration of job growth.
Temporary factors such as the heatwave have restricted employment, and difficulties with the declining job market in the construction industry and the self-employment sector continue.
In a response to these latest figures, the government pledged to redouble efforts in boosting domestic demand and exports, which will lead to a rise in employment, and prepare personalized job support for construction workers. Furthermore, it plans to check employment conditions across each industry and class weekly in order to devise countermeasures for any issues that are detected. Moon Hye-ryun, Arirang News.
Battery demand is growing, and so is the need for better solutions to allow for its sustainable adoption along the value chain. Lee Soo-jin explains.
The South Korean government is accelerating efforts to be more economically sustainable by implementing measures to increase EV batteries that can be reused. During an economic ministerial meeting held on Wednesday, the government announced that it will make performance testing mandatory for batteries before removal, starting in 2027.
The government will establish an institutional framework to utilize used batteries from electric vehicles at the end of their life cycle as a resource rather than waste.
Performance testing for batteries is currently required only after they are removed, but the government is aiming to expand the scope of batteries that can be repurposed and reused under the new regulation. With this change, EV owners will now have more options if they choose to replace old batteries with repurposed batteries instead of brand new batteries. And they will also be able to be compensated for their batteries based on a more accurate and detailed battery assessment. This comes as the Ministry of Environment projects that there will be more than 100,000 waste batteries each year starting in 2030 with the growing number of registered EV vehicles. Global society has also already moved towards implementing measures that will increase the amount of batteries that can be repurposed, reused, and recycled. Under the European Union battery regulation adopted in 2023, consumers will be able to remove and replace batteries in their electronic products at any time of the life cycle starting 2027. And from 2025 onwards, certain levels of valuable raw materials in batteries, such as cobalt, lithium, and nickel, are also required to be recovered. And changes to regulation in other sectors were also announced during the meeting. including plans to designate another area in addition to COEX and Gwanghwamun Square as an outdoor advertising zone sometime in 2026. That's part of the goal to create a South Korean version of New York City's Times Square in Seoul. 이수진, Arirang News.
Unionized workers at Samsung Electronics announced that they would extend the strike indefinitely starting Wednesday after the firm failed to enter negotiations with the union. More than 6,000 members of the National Samsung Electronics Union staged an unprecedented 3-day walkout on Monday over pay and working conditions. Their demands include a 3.5% increase in wages and an extra day of vacation on the founding day of the union. Samsung Electronics says that there have been no disruptions to production lines so far and that it will continue to ensure that this is the case. When stress piles up, many start to think of a break from daily life. A getaway at a temple sounds peaceful, but enjoying that time with your pet dog might be even better. Our An Sung-jin went to one of those temples to find out more.
Away from the city in the peace and quiet of nature. It's a healing day at a temple in Chungcheongbuk-do Province, South Korea, a 2-hour drive from Seoul. Those in need of a rest can head to a temple to experience the life of a Buddhist practitioner and escape the stresses of everyday life. But this temple stay is a bit different. You get to do all of this, but with your dog.
You may think you brought your dogs, but I believe the dogs brought you here.
In coordination with the Korea Tourism Organization, Pan Life is a platform for pet owners to find anything from one-day activities to hotels and resorts that allow pets. This year, it branched out into temple stays where you can take your dog with you. This program comes as more and more South Koreans have pets.
This program is carried out to discover and further develop smaller tourist areas. In the future, we look to expand programs like these nationwide to revitalize domestic tourism.
Running once a month from May till November except for July and August due to the heat, up to 12 human participants and their dogs can attend at a time. Due to high demand, the previous session was fully booked within 30 seconds. Dogs get to wear their own Buddhist robes, and participants also get to enjoy various activities such as making your own lily lantern and learning how to do the Buddhist 108 prostration.
Having this kind of program allows me to spend more time with my body. And I think there are not many places, even that my dog and I can go. So having this kind of program where you can be intimate with your dog and see other dogs as well, I think it's really good.
There are many ways to find internal peace, and perhaps for this summer, staying at a temple with your pet dog could be your getaway from the stress of everyday life. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
More than 200 millimeters of heavy rain has poured down on Chungcheongdo and Jeollabuk-do provinces overnight, causing damage. Up to 60 millimeters more rain will fall on the coast of Gyeongsangbuk-do and Jeollanam-do province. Please take extra precautions. Tomorrow, there will be many places where the temperature feels like 33 degrees in the Seoul metropolitan area and west of Gangwon-do province, where a heat wave warning has been issued. High temperatures will also be seen in Chungcheongdo province, where recovery work from the heavy rain damage is in full swing. Tomorrow, most areas will start off at around 22 to 23 degrees Celsius. Highs will be topping out at 31 in Seoul, Daejeon, Daegu, and Gyeongju, 30 degrees. Monsoon rain will fall mainly on the southern coast and Jeju Island later this week. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That's all we have for today. Thank you for watching. Arirang News will be back at 9 a.m. Korea time.